So I think The Odyssey is the best movie Christopher Nolan has ever written since the inception and potentially even since Prestige in terms of how well the end of the movie pays off and does something unique that none of his other movies do, which is make the movie better on a second viewing. And I'll explain why by telling you the issue with some of his previous movies and why most people only ever watch them once. Now, the most rewatched movie Nolan has made is probably Interstellar. And one of the reasons why people rewatch that movie is because it throws a lot of science at you that is difficult to grasp on your first watch. And that's one of the reasons people want to watch it again to fully understand things like the fifth dimensional beings and the way the closed loop time travel works within the story. And there's been a thing with Nolan where, since Prestige, where the twist of the movie is usually the big payoff, that as he gets more experience as a filmmaker, they have generally gotten better. And I think The Odyssey is the culmination of all of this. And the reason I say that is to do specifically with the twist regarding Zendaya and the character of Athena, or if she's actually playing Athena at all. But I am going to spoil the twist of The Odyssey, and by that I don't mean the end of a 3,000-year-old story. I'm specifically going to spoil the twist that Christopher Nolan added in his interpretation of The Odyssey in this movie. So if you don't want that aspect spoiled for you, you have been warned. Now, you would have seen people complaining about Nolan's version of The Odyssey for not featuring the gods as people were expecting them, as people who came down in the form of human beings with tremendous power, like you would see in something like Percy Jackson. And I think that's one of the best things he chose to do. Not just because he's showing us a grounded, realistic take on this story in the sense that he presents the gods as they would have been seen by the people of ancient Greece, as in they would not see Zeus walking down the street in human form. They would see signs of Zeus, and from that they would extrapolate that something was his will or his design. And we see that a lot in the movie. When Odysseus offends Poseidon, we see the sea change to reflect that. When we see Zeus's judgment is looming over them, we hear the thunder. What he's doing is he's using pathetic fallacy as a stand-in for the gods, which isn't something new. It's been done in literature for years. But I think the story is better for it, because one of the issues with The Odyssey, and I think it happens with every adaptation of The Odyssey since ancient Greece basically, is that it relies very heavily on the gods swooping in and solving all of Odysseus' problems for them. There's even a moment where Hermes literally just turns up out of nowhere, unprompted, and just gives him the solution to defeating Circe, instead of letting Odysseus figure it out for himself. And granted, back then, this would have been the storytelling norm. Deus Ex Machina hasn't been overdone yet, because it's only just started to be done. But if you're telling the story to a modern audience, most people will roll their eyes and say, okay, this is how he solves all of his problems, having a god step in and do it for him. And it's become shorthand for lazy writing today, which is why I'm glad Nolan didn't do that. Except for when it came to Athena, who was being played by Zendaya. Now, the big reveal for this, I think, heavily depended on us expecting her to play Athena. Because what happens in the movie is Odysseus has a pin of Athena that we see him praying to in several moments throughout the movie, and when he does, Zendaya appears to him. I think this is the best check Zendaya has ever cashed for a role, because all she had to do was travel to Greek islands and look disappointed in Matt Damon. And I do appreciate Christopher Nolan for bringing her to every single location to do that, because he filmed the entire thing on location without a green screen, when they could have very easily just green screened her in and have a film everything within a day basically. But the big twist reveal at the end of The Odyssey, which recontextualizes the entire movie, is the fact that when Odysseus is seeing Zendaya, he's not seeing the goddess Athena appear to him to guide him as she did in the original story. What he's seeing is a priestess of Athena that was beheaded during the sack of Troy, and he is experiencing guilt over the fact that what he did was break Zeus's law. And the way Nolan ties that in is the sea people, who were a real historical people that existed, that we know nothing about, that did bring about the end of the Bronze Age, were in fact just Odysseus and his crew violating Zeus's law, which is the law of Xenia, which is guest friendship. And by breaking that trust, that was originally broken with the Trojan horse, that essentially kept that world together, because the Bronze Age was built on mutual trust between strangers. and treating people as you would be treated, or being kind to them just in case they might be a god in disguise, which was the reason given, but essentially it is treat people as you would like to be treated. And Nolan put that through a more modern lens by calling it Zeus's law to make it easier for audiences to understand without knowing ancient Greek words they probably don't know how to spell, which I think is a good change. It doesn't really ruin the story in any way, and it gets the point across to the audience, which is what good changes should do. And I know a lot of people are not going to be happy that Nolan made Odysseus less of a vain and prideful character, because his original downfall in the Odyssey was due to his hubris, and focused more on his guilt for his actions in the Trojan War and the long-lasting effect that had. It's something that makes this 3-hour-long movie completely recontextualized in just one scene, to the point where I'd be willing to sit through it all over again, which is what a good plot twist should do. It's not just a shock factor or a wow moment, or just having a character die off suddenly, which I think has become the trend these days, and I think Game of Thrones is partially to blame for that, because of Sean's Bean death being so shocking in that TV series. And I think loads of media has tried to copy that by just having characters get killed off at the end of something for next to no reason, usually, because it's what Game of Thrones did and people loved that show, and now people have become desensitized to it. And then you have the opposite problem where shows aren't willing to commit to that, and then you end up with too many characters by the time the show ends, which is why it's so refreshing to see Christopher Nolan pull off such a successful twist that left me completely satisfied with the conclusion and actually eager to watch it again, because I think we live in a world where too many things just want infinite revenue forever, and they have to constantly hook you in to watch the next thing, which is currently the issue with the MCU, and to an extent also Star Wars, with the countless amount of tie-in Disney Plus shows that movies need to link off to retain viewers and keep you watching forever, which is why it's so refreshing to get a standalone movie that has a good beginning, middle, and end. It doesn't expect you to watch a dozen shows afterwards or 100 sequels, which is one of the reasons why I think Obsession is one of the best movies of the year, for much of the same reasons, because that is also a very well directed and shot movie. In fact, there are plenty of things in Obsession that most people miss out on not just the first viewing but second and third viewing, because it's so packed to the brim of scenes and motifs that are so well interconnected within the story itself. In fact, I also have a video on this channel where I break down every scene in Obsession and all the choices the director made to make the point of the movie as clear as possible, and even some scenes that were changed mid-production. If you want to find out more about that, I have a video on my channel which I will have linked right here. But if you enjoyed this video and my take on the Odyssey, please do like the video, comment down below with your thoughts, let me know what you thought about the movie. Don't forget to subscribe. I also live stream on this channel, so feel free to chat with me when I'm live, and I'll see you next time.